Hello, hello, how are you doing? Hope you're well wherever you are in the world. Yes, once again I have weird hair. I just realised when I was coming up the stairs after having had a look at my hair in the mirror and going, oh, I need to put hair ties in it or whatever it was I was doing. I realised that I've only sort of like 2 or 3 times in my life had my hair long enough to actually put it into hair ties or anything like that. And it's been long enough this time since my last haircut for a while now because I've been putting it up in a clip on the back of my head when I'm not streaming. And I kind of forgot that there were other things I could do with it. I just sort of like scrape it all back, stick it up with a clip, and that was it. And totally forgot that I could actually do anything else with it. So here we are. I have my hair in yet another way. And once again, it's with these, looking at the weird jumble of the hair ties here because I was going to tell you what they are. It's these coily hair tie things. They're like, instead of elastics, they look like old phone cords. I talked about them the other day, trying to get it so it focuses on them properly. It's a bit hard for the camera to focus on because they've got that pearlescent sheen on them. Anyway, so to me, an old person, these look a little bit like they're made out of old phone cords because it's that same sort of profile of the coil on the plastic. They seem to work quite well. I've not slept with them in to know if they do anything strange when you leave them in overnight. I have heard that some people do leave them in overnight because you don't end up with funny bumps and lumps in your hair from where you've had a normal hair elastic. And I've also seen people wearing them as bracelets or wristbands. Anyway, don't need any of that. That's just general chit-chat. Looking over here, checking on my second monitor for the things that I'm meant to do, my Twitch housekeeping, community housekeeping, making sure we don't have any bots sitting in the chat so they can steal people's information and things like that. I have told you about that before, but if I see a whole bunch of new people here, I may ramble on about it again, or some other people I know who are streamers who don't necessarily pay attention to whether they've got bots or not. So if I do suddenly go off on a ramble about bots and curating your community, you guys are in the know as to why that's happened. I have seen too many nasty things happen because of, thank you, Jonathan, well done, beep, beep, not a bot. Because I have seen too many nasty things happen with hate raids, botting, chat botting, where it's not actually a helpful program that's set up to look after your chat, but it's actually people who write programs that come in and either steal information or basically steal other wonderful benefits of being part of a community, such as gifted subs and things like that. Yes, it doesn't make sense to me why they would do that. But I think it's a little bit like the teenage boys trying to prove how excellent they are at coding by writing up viruses and things like that, because some of them are written that way, where it's people who are wanting to be able to say, oh look, you remember that thing that caused so many problems for everybody last month? That was me, I did it. If you look into the code behind it, you'll see my name in there. It looks like this. And that is actually the motivation behind a bunch of the different destructive behaviors that happen using technology. But one of the big reasons why I take care of those things is because I want my community to feel safe here. I did actually get raided one time and it wasn't in a good way. I mean, I've been raided a few times now and it's wonderful when it's a good bunch of people, but it was not really a good bunch of people this particular time. And it was my first experience of having a bunch of people I didn't know just suddenly turning up and chatting. And there were all sorts of inferences being bandied about. And unfortunately, I was on my old computer at the time and it had a go slow happening where its brain would get overloaded. It was coping with me streaming, with me using my camera input, my microphone, having my overlay set up, fairly simple overlay set up. So it wasn't overloaded by that, but it was kind of at its limit as to what it could cope with. And unfortunately, that meant that I couldn't actually even type into chat to clear the chat or to reset the chat or set it to subscriber only mode or anything like that. I had to wait until that part of my computer's brain had woken up again and was ready, and then ban those users. They were not bots that time. Ban those users and clear the chat. But I'd lost somebody who was actually really enjoying the story. Obviously, they'd had a really bad time elsewhere, where they had been targeted inappropriately and just didn't feel safe. And I don't want that to be happening on my channel. And it's my channel, so I'm allowed to decide that that's not going to be the sort of behaviour I will accept on my channel. And I think it's a good idea if we actually just take care of our communities, you know, like we used to in the old days. Look after one another, keep an eye out for one another, make it a pleasant place to be, and also help people who are a bit scared of technology to learn that you can actually have safe places online. You can actually do certain things and find decent, good, helpful, friendly, kind people who are supportive and all that sort of thing, instead of just seeing technology, just seeing the internet as a bad, scary thing, like where the wolves are in the woods and all that sort of stuff. You know what I mean. Anyway, you guys have heard all that before. I don't need to tell you all that. I am looking around, checking my other monitor. Yes, that's all set up the way I want it to be. I've got my other document out. I know what I haven't got out. I have got the document, but I haven't got it set up. Yes, I am holding up my finger because I'm trying to remind myself I'm doing something. What I needed to do was get the jigsaw puzzle. You heard that, didn't you? I'm pretty sure that my microphone's set up so it can hear me whispering and talking. I'm just going to check that this is the right one, that it's not one that we've done before. No, pretty sure we haven't done that one before. Okay, here we go. I am going to get this ready so that when the others arrive, because I'm pretty sure that some of our jigsaw puzzle keen people who like doing jigsaw puzzles, who are regulars here, will actually be here at some stage soon. I'll just get this set up so that I can give you your invite link. And we are going with, let's go with 90 pieces this time. It was just a little bit hard for somebody didn't really enjoy the complexity of it. Not last time, but the time before. So, yeah, no, that's okay. And I will find the link. Just waiting. Here it is. Here it comes on my little window over at the side here. But I have to do all of that. What you saw before up here, that there was that little panel that runs across the middle. I have to do all the changes I want to do to the specific puzzle before I click away from that panel, because I cannot get that back and make any other changes to it. This is the things that you learn when you're doing stuff online. Just random stuff you didn't think you were going to learn along the way. So there's the current link, and I shall also pull up my Stream Elements chat manager, which is where I've actually got another link set up, and I'll just edit that link in case somebody arrives and wants to put it in, wants to call it up by using the chat link for the jigsaw puzzle. So I will tell you what that command is in case somebody arrives and wants to know how to get it, okay? Because they can't always scroll back and get to what the chat was before they arrived here. It kind of works, but it kind of doesn't, and my brain is still getting around that one. So the command for it to pull up the jigsaw puzzle invite so that you can access it, that's what it's for, is !jigsaw, JIGSAW, and there you go. And that's for the current one, and if I remember to later on, oh, great to see you, Aunt. Wonderful. The only reason I'm saying that is because I've just seen the puzzle say Aunt has joined the game. I'm telling you the link because I may not remember. Oh, that's right. I will try to remember to put in the commands what the next invite link is when we get to that one. Okay? So, right. And I'll keep that tab open, but in the background. I hope you're all well. I know I said that. Oh, I needed to say hello to everybody who's new here. There is somebody in the chat user listing that I saw whose name I haven't seen before, as far as I know. You may have been here before, but my brain is just a little bit, it's the grey hair, but it's also, and it goes with the wrinkles as well, the age that means. It's a nice semi-polite way of saying age, my age, but it's also because I have ADHD. My brain is so full of so much information and gets very easily distracted, and I'm also autistic, and one of my superpowers is not remembering things I need to remember, but remembering things that are totally irrelevant but someone might ask for, like the name of a book author or an actor in a movie or something like that. I can watch a movie and I can hear a voice that's being used for a voiceover or something like that, not one of the announcer types, but where they've just used one of the actors to explain something, but they're not in character. And I can usually tell you which of the actors that one is. It's just the fine-tuning between my ear and my brain. And for some reason, names, when I put them together, first name and surname, sometimes stick better than they do for other people. Other times, I just haven't a clue. I can look at somebody and go, I've seen them before, but I don't know where. And I probably know their name, but I haven't a clue. Don't ask me what their name is. I'm sorry. It's just part of what goes with it. But it makes it fun also when I'm reading, because my ADHD means that I can be halfway through a sentence. I will have my eyes on the sentence on the page, reading it out loud to you, and suddenly I don't know whereabouts on the page I am and I can't find it. It's quite funny, actually. I wouldn't laugh at somebody else if they were doing that, but I think it's funny when I do it, so I don't mind if you laugh as well. Anyway, so I was going to introduce myself, wasn't I? Yes. So, hi, I'm Jev. I live in New Zealand. I often refer to myself as Jev in NZ, which because that's the way we say the letters for New Zealand. And I'm saying a lot today. I try not to, but sometimes it happens. I read old children's books. That's what we're here for today. Well, that's what I'm here for. If you're not here for that, then maybe you can enjoy the jigsaw puzzles. But here's a prime example of an old children's book. As you can see, it's falling apart. It's had damage to the covers in terms of probably water, getting damp, getting splashed. It's had a tear of the paper illustration that has been pasted on the cover at the factory. Somebody's put a piece of sellotape on it and the sellotape has gone all brittle and it's not sticky anymore. It's got to that weird stage, but it's definitely discoloured. The pages in the book are very, very thick. I think we've had one page missing in this story. There's another story I was reading one other time. I think it was to my mother. And there was a page missing. I might have read it here too. There was a page missing there, and it's not one. They're both old, so old and unpopular that there are no digital copies online that I've been able to find to be able to find out what those missing pages, the words on those missing pages are, to be able to read them. I'm hoping someday to be able to. If I ever manage to get a copy of this one, I'm hoping one day to be able to get down to Auckland Central Public Library and request the other children's books written by this particular author, because she's a New Zealand author and they hold copies of her books. I'm hoping to get permission to be able to borrow them. They're in the special collection because they're not very commonly held anymore. And also get permission to take photographs of the pages, because these have not been digitised as far as I know. There are two of her books that have. I've read one of them already. The other one I haven't, but I can't even remember what it's like. I know the one that I read, it was okay. It did really well for what I said that she often does in her stories, but it wasn't a continuous story with lots of little stories in it. It was just bits and pieces. And if you enjoyed it, that's wonderful. But it just didn't appeal to me the way her other ones that I have read before for myself have. Now, the books I read are often books I read when I was growing up, and they will be actual books that I had a copy of because the physical book that I read when I was growing up either belonged to one of my parents or one of my grandparents. Books were very, very valuable to us, and so therefore they were reasonably well looked after and passed on, which is why I was able to read them, whereas a lot of other people in my friends' families never had any of those sort of books around because they didn't mean a lot to the families, and so they didn't keep them. I suppose that was part of it, which for me is a bit sad, you know. It's like, oh, you missed out on discovering what wonderful worlds you can visit when you're reading old books if you didn't get a chance to. But it meant that I have a broader picture of what the world was like once upon a time, because even if a story is set in a different time period to when the author is writing, it will often still have aspects of the author's current period of where they live and when they live, colour the way they talk about the things they're writing about, even if they're set in a different time period. So it meant that I actually secondhand got to experience some aspects of what life was like in other places and times that others around me didn't. I was very, very familiar with aspects of living in England just because I had read about so much of English countryside living, I suppose. Yeah, my family background is largely from the British Isles. There's a lot of other stuff in there as well, but there's a lot of that sort of thing. That particular book I just waved at you, as I said, has not been very well looked after. It was published in about, I think it was 1924. It's written by a lady called Edith, and she was a New Zealand teacher, school teacher. And she then she retired early, very early, and wrote children's books and wrote other things too, wrote educational articles and all sorts of things. She was quite revolutionary as a teacher because she believed that children needed to have their hands on actual objects that they were learning about when they were little children, so that they could learn about things much more thoroughly, because they would understand then how things work, how things function together, which prepares your mind for scientific thinking at a later stage. Also higher level mathematics. It starts off with its basis in arithmetic, which is numbers that we see around us. Basic arithmetic is addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. And then you carry on from there into other things. If you have an understanding of how they relate to each other, you use it a lot in everyday life, like price comparisons when you go grocery shopping. Do I get this or do I get that? Well, this one might look like it's cheaper. They say it is because it's on special. But in reality, because of how much of this there is in this packet, as well as the price, I'm getting more of it as well as it costing more. The price comparison actually says that this one is actually worth a lot more. But there's an extra factor. Is it something I will use a lot of, or is it something I will very occasionally use and therefore have to throw out the excess? If it's something I will only use a tiny bit of, it's going to be a lot more expensive to buy the one that's actually price per weight cheaper. That's going to actually cost me more because I won't actually use that much weight. I'll only use a little bit of it and then I'll have to throw it away because it's got too old or whatever. And that sort of number usage is very, very practical. And that comes from basic arithmetic and understanding very, very, very basic algebra, actually. It's the how numbers relate to each other when you have one and you don't know the other one and you've got to work out how they relate. Yeah, it seems very complex when you're learning about it at school because it's all theoretical, but if you can actually apply it in real life, it becomes much easier to learn and understand because you can see how it can be used. And the very early points of that are what she believed were important for children when they were learning in their early stages at school. You need to have things hands-on so you can learn how to do it. If you are going to teach children how to do up buttons, then use real buttons and real buttonholes. Simple. If you want them to understand how plants grow in the garden, get them out there playing with plants that are growing in a garden, or get them to help with growing plants in a garden, that sort of thing. Anyway, so that book was about 1924, I think. Might have been 1926. This one here is even older, but it's in much better nick, much better condition. Yes, it's got things like the page seam is starting to pull apart, but the stitching is still there, holding those sections together. But it's so old that I can actually feel the print, the indentations of where the typeface, the pieces of lead type, were pressed into the page in the printing press. And then it has illustrations that are done in this sort of a style. So it's not just the illustration showing children in what at the time was probably quite trendy clothing. It's the fact that to us it's so very, very old-fashioned, but also the way that the illustration is made is actually scratch marks and textures made on a plate of metal or a piece of hardwood or even a piece of stone, depending on what printing system they were using as to which of those they used, but most of the time it was a piece of metal. And then ink was spread onto the plate. The excess ink was taken off so it would just sit in the little grooves, and then you put the piece of paper down on top of it, of the metal plate. You put it into the printing press, and then you pull the lever and get it to squeeze really, really, really tightly. Sometimes it's a roller press, sometimes it's a wind down press, and that would actually push the paper against the inky plate hard enough that when you very carefully peeled the paper off, the ink would stay on the paper. And then you see that as an illustration in a book. So very, very old hands-on methods of creating books. Yes, those are the sort of books I grew up reading. That particular one I hadn't read before, though. I didn't see that one until I was in my mid-50s. Yeah, which is kind of not, that's like now. Anyway, that one was given to my grandmother's brother in I've told you this before and I've forgotten it. That's my biscuits. I'm going to talk about those in a minute. 1897, it was given to him, and it would have been printed before that. When I say before that, what I mean is not just immediately before that necessarily. They used to print books and then have them in storage until they had requests for more of them to be supplied, and they would expect to have them in storage, some of them being sold ongoing, but keep on working their way down through the stock until they'd run out. They would expect to have books in storage for a couple of years before they'd been sold, or even longer. They thought a lot more long-term than what we do now. So the extra bit of information I have for those of you who are new here, hi again, 3 tips. Yes, Jonathan, I remember 3 tips. 3 tips. First tip, something to drink. So for me, I find it essential. Always have water. Always have water handy. It's brilliant for keeping your brain and your body working well. But on top of that, I will often have another drink, say coffee or something like that. I have iced coffee, but it's currently in the fridge, and it's a bought one this time. I totally forgot to bring it up with me. Excuse me. But I am going to have a sip of my I just topped up this one. This is the thing I usually drink out of when I'm actually reading, but I topped it up just before and I missed the dribble that was on the edge of the rim. But just because this is easier, it doesn't tend to tip over as much as that skinny one. I mean, you look at that. Which one, if I bump them, is going to fall over? Don't want to do that, not near the computer. Yeah, sorry, dry day. It's cold weather here in New Zealand, hence the long sleeves and the thermals. It's not even sunny today, so I have a small fire going in the fireplace downstairs. You may hear somebody rattling around loading up the fireplace with firewood at some stage. I'm not sure about that. But that's just part of me being here where I am. My office is up above the living room space, but there's no wall between us. There's just a handrail. So I get all the sound that comes through from there. So that's point number 1 is the drinks. Point number 2 is snacks. And I have, same as last time, and yes, I'm rattling it this time, I have speculars, which are Dutch spice biscuits. and they have cinnamon as the main flavour. Cinnamon, cloves, cardamom. So I'm pretty sure there's some other ones in there too. Hang on, I'm going to look it up because I've always wondered about this. And I'm very short-sighted, which means that I have to look over because I've got graduated lenses and the writing is so small that I can't actually see it through the bottom of my glasses properly. I have to look over them and just go without my glasses to read it. Jonathan says, it's very cold, 4 layers of clothes on the top and 3 on my legs at the moment. Oh, that's cold. Yeah, I was asking my daughter a little bit earlier on today if it was cold, and she said, not quite as cold, she's in Wellington, not quite as cold as what it was in the weekend, but it was nicer in the weekend because there was no wind whatsoever and it was sunny where she was. And I remember those sort of days when we lived in England for a while. And yeah, it's cold, but it's a lot more livable. But yeah, no, that 4 layers of clothes on the top and 3 on your legs, it's not comfortable. Right, I'm looking at these ingredients: wheat, sugar, wheat flour, sugar, oil, spices. That's the bit I want. Cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, allspice, ginger, coriander, mace, and cardamom. That's why they're yummy. They've got other ingredients too, like raising agents and sugar syrup, but I'm not interested in those. I just want to know about spices. So I have, yes, I'm going to rattle them lots. watching my sound meter flashing around there because I'm rattling. The little things amuse me. As anyone who has seen my today's Instagram post that was saying I was going live will see, little things amuse me. Now today's picture, children, on my Dutch spice biscuits, my speculaas, is a windmill. This one I can tell what the picture is. Some of them I can't tell what the pictures are. This particular brand does a range of 4 or 6 different designs on their biscuits. And some, like I said, some of the designs I can pick what they are and other ones I can't. There's one which is a sheaf of wheat, I think. There's another one which I think is a horse. There's one which kind of strangely looks like an elephant, but I don't know if it actually is or not. Anyway, so that's 2 points. First one, water. Second, drinks. Second one, snacks. Third one is comfort. Get yourself somewhere comfortable to sit and something comfortable to sit, to have around you if it's cold where you are, or to cool you down if you are in the northern hemisphere and it's particularly hot. You can even throw your water over you. That's why water's another reason water's a good, safe drink to have. If you're too hot, cool down, splash it, whatever, doesn't matter. Right, so that's all the intro out of the way, and I shall get on with actually reading the book. We got up to the last chapter we had last time was the woodling, which was about this little fairy not a fairy. A woodling is another one of those magical creatures in this story, and the woodlings live in the woods. I suppose that makes sense. But this one was particularly intrigued by what life was like in the Dream Girl's garden where the fairies lived. And the fairies are the ones that live amongst the flowers and look after them and things like that. So we are going to carry on and see what today's chapters are. The first one is the Thorny One. There you go. So if anyone's just arrived and wants to take part in the jigsaw puzzle, use the jigsaw command, which is !jigsaw, and that will give you the invite link to be able to join in with the jigsaw puzzle, which is up here. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm very sorry you've missed out. You might want to come and join us on Twitch next time I'm live. Anyway, carrying on. The Thorny One. We are reading The Dream Girl's Garden by Edith Howes. And this chapter is called The Thorny One. The night hung dim and domed above the quiet trees, and all the fairies were asleep except the pretty Perlican. She sat upright on her dainty bed of poplar down, startled by the sound of bitter crying. She listened and listened. Yes, someone was certainly crying. Surely it was not a fairy. No, the sound came from the trees outside the garden. Some poor woodling must be in trouble. Tender-hearted Perlican slipped out of bed, threw on her wrapper of woven spider silk, and flew out over the barberry hedge to see if she could be of some use or comfort. Barberry is another plant. Poplar, barberry. There you go. You can write these words down and look them up either now or later on. Well, that one of my extra tips. 3B, 3A, I don't know, 4, something. Have a pencil and paper handy so that you can write down things that you want to find out about, because we come across all sorts of odd things when we're reading. So, and it's the plants that are a big part of what makes me think that this particular story is set in England. So she flew out over the barberry hedge to see if she could find, to see if she could be of some use or comfort. She traced the crying to a great tree where 2 branches bent out from the trunk and made a nest-like hollow. Moss had grown in the hollow, and glowworms lived in the moss. Ooh, glowworms. We know about glowworms. I told you all about them previously, didn't I? I can't even remember what part of the story it was that we were reading that I thought about glowworms and told you. Anyway. And glowworms lived in the moss. Their lamps were all lit, and by their light Pelican saw a woodling stretched on the moss, sobbing as if his little heart would break. "Whatever is the matter?" asked Pelican. He lifted his head for a moment. "Everybody is cruel to me," he wailed. "I'm so miserable." Now, when he lifted his head, Pelican was horrified to see that his face was all prickly with thorns. They grew out from his cheeks, his chin, his forehead, and his nose, and they were sharp and strong as rose thorns. And now she noticed that his body was covered with thorns too. They stuck out everywhere. You couldn't put a finger between them. "You poor little thing," said Pelican. "Whatever has happened to you?" "Everybody is cruel to me," he wailed once more, and he sobbed and would not raise his head again. "Oh dear, I don't know what to do for him. I have done all I can, I'm sure." It was the woodling mother who spoke. She sat on one of the branches a little above the hollow, and Pelican had not noticed her until now. "I love all my woodling children, even the Thorny One," she went on, "and I try to help them in all their troubles, but now I have done all I can. I have done all I can." She rocked herself backwards and forwards, and 2 big tears fell from her eyes and shone like dew in the glowworm's light. "What is the matter with him? Why is he all prickly like that?" asked Pelican. "His thorns won't go in. He has stuck them out so much that they seem to have grown like that at last, and neither he nor anyone else can get them back into their pockets." "Pockets?" cried Pelican. "Person after my own heart, my own mind." She read my mind. "Pockets and thorns. You don't mean to say you woodlings grow these things on your skin?" "In our skin," said the mother. "Didn't you know that? I thought you fairies knew everything. Everybody has thorns. Fairies and humans have them in their minds where they can't be seen and can only be felt when they are stuck out and somebody bumps against them. But woodlings have them all over their bodies." Pelican looked at her cheerfully. "I can't see one on you," she said, "because I have learned to keep them in their pockets. Every thorn has its own little pocket in the skin, so cleverly made that when the thorn is drawn back and the pocket is shut, you can't see the smallest trace of either. Wise woodlings keep their thorns shut in, for if you stick them out, you are sure to hurt others, and they push out their thorns to defend themselves when you hurt them. And you get hurt. That's a thing I have always tried to teach my children, but this one wouldn't learn. He would stick them out, and so he was always in trouble. 20 times a day I used to tell him that thorns call out thorns. But he would never remember it. He grew worse and worse until everybody began to call him the Thorny One, and the name has stuck." The Thorny One had been crying more quietly while the woodling mother was speaking, but at this his sobs broke out afresh. "Everybody is cruel to me," he wailed again. "It isn't my fault at all." "Poor silly little thing. He doesn't understand even yet," said the woodling mother pityingly. He can't see that he has made all his own misery, and indeed it is misery, for today we find that the thorns won't go into their pockets any more. No matter how hard he tries, he can't pull them in. I have tried and tried to push them in until my hands are sore and bleeding, but not one of them will move, so now he is the thorny one for life. And there is no help for it. The other woodlings will not play with him now, nor have anything to do with him. Nobody pities him but me, and I can do nothing more for him. It is terrible, sighed Perlican, and her tender eyes were full of tears. I wish I knew what to do. There is surely some way of curing him, if we could only find it out. Suddenly her face brightened. The gentlest one might know a way, she cried. She is so wise that surely she will know a way. Come, I will take you to her. The thorny one stopped crying and looked up. Where does she live? He asked. Is it far to go? What does it matter where she lives or how far it is? Remarked the woodling mother sharply. You want to be cured, don't you? There, now my own mother is unkind to me, sobbed the thorny one. Oh, come on, said Perlican, and she rose from the tree and flew off towards the garden where it was always spring, which is the garden where the gentlest one lives, and looks after the fairykins, the babyest fairies. As soon as she was sure the two woodlings were following her, she waited for them, and then the three flew side by side over the land through the last dim shadows of the night. The birds woke up and sang good morning to them as they passed, and by the time they reached their journey's end, the sunbeams had come down to kiss the flowers awake. In the garden, the gentlest one was playing with the fairykins, who were laughing and shouting with delight. Sorry, I'm just checking that my phone is on silent, because I don't think I remembered to check that. Yep, it is. Yay. It's good. Otherwise you end up hearing me twice at the same time, and one of me is reading different bits of the book to the other me, and it's very confusing. Where am I up to? In the garden, the gentlest one was playing with the fairykins, who were laughing and shouting with delight. One of them had flung her arms tightly around the gentlest one's neck and was squeezing her and squealing in her high little voice, I love oo, I truly do, I love oo, I truly do. That's the way it's written here, not the squeaky voice, but the the pronunciation. Why, here is Perlican, cried the gentlest one, as soon as she could speak. Just like being a normal mother with small children around. Next moment they all saw the thorny one, and the fairykins drew back in horror from that sight. He looked much worse in daylight than in the dimness of the night. What has he done that he is made all prickly? They asked, but the gentlest one stood silent, looking at him with grave and pitying eyes. Even when Perlican had told her all the story, she still stood looking as if she could see right into him, and that is just what she could do, for presently she said, It is a bad case, and she shook her head. Yet there is a cure, she said slowly. There is a way, if you will take it. The thorny one lifted his drooping head and gazed piteously into her gentle eyes. I would do anything to be cured, he said, for he had seen the horror on the faces of the fairykins. Ah, that is good, said the gentlest one. Then I will tell you how to go to work. But first I must explain the real cause of your trouble, for evidently you do not know it. In our hearts we each have two little pearly boxes, one full of smiles and the other full of whines. The whines are tiny imps who love to sit and howl in the pockets where the thorns should be. But the smiles prefer to sit on top of the pockets when they are shut and the thorns are safely inside. Now you have opened your whine box so often that the whines have all come out. Each one has crept into a little thorn pocket, and there he sits with his feet pressed hard against the thorn to keep it stuck out. No wonder you cannot push your thorns in again. You never will do so until you have those whines safely in their box with the lid shut down fast. How can I do that? asked the woodling humbly. Far off in the land of help yourself, there is a little bottle of golden oil called the oil of good cheer. If you can find that bottle and rub yourself with the oil, the smell of it will be so hateful to the whines, that they will rush back to their box and shut the lid. But the smiles love the smell and will come out and sit on the pockets to keep the thorns inside. You must go alone to the land of help yourself, and you must walk all the way. It is a rough and stony land, and there is a hill to climb, but if you do not lose heart, you will find the oil. I will go at once, cried the woodling. The woodling mother looked doubtful. He is such a little fellow to go so far alone, she said. Can't I go with him? No, he must go alone, replied the gentlest one. I will go at once, said the woodling again. Please tell me the way to the land of help yourself. That, too, you must find alone. Turn your back to us, fly out of this garden, then drop to the ground and keep straight on. That is all I can tell you. You will find us here when you return. Without another word, the woodling turned round, flew over the trees and out of the garden, then dropped to the ground and walked straight on. And suddenly, almost as soon as he had done that, he found himself in the land. Yes, there it was, for the road ended in a great signpost on which was the name in big letters, The Land of Help Yourself. Behind the signpost, a stony plain stretched away to a rocky hill. Oh, long, long, long way, and then up a rocky hill. Might have found it easily, but it might be hard work to get to where he needs to go. We'll find out. Sorry, I need a mouthful of water. Behind the signpost, a stony plain stretched away to a rocky hill. Not a flower, not a bush, not a blade of grass was to be seen. It is a dreadful land, sighed the woodling. Oh dear, that's a whine. I don't think that's helping. Yet he went on. He was not used to walking, and the stones hurt his soft little feet. But he must not use his wings. He plodded on, step after step, mile after mile, until he came to the foot of the hill. The noise you can hear is me turning the pages because I'm using a real physical book. His feet were sore and bleeding now, and he was very tired. He almost lost heart and gave up, but he remembered the look on the faces of the fairykins when they saw his thorns, and on he went. Sorry, lost the page, as I said I could. And on he went again, up now and up, clambering over great boulders and rough rocks, until at last, wearied out, he fell face downwards on the summit of the hill. And there, within the reach of his hand, stood a little bottle, shining like gold in the sun. With a cry of joy he grasped it, unscrewed the stopper, squirted drops of the precious oil on his hands and on his body between the thorns. At once its delicious scent filled all the air. The squirting hole was small, and it took him some time to cover his body with the oil, but wherever it went, the whines, who hated that delicious smell, sprang hastily from the pockets and scurried away home to their box, and as fast as they went, the thorns dropped back into their pockets and were safely shut in. Then the smiles, smelling that delicious smell, pushed and pushed at the lid of their box until they pushed it open. Out they rushed, and in a few minutes they were sitting all over the pockets, and not a thorn was to be seen. I will never open that whine box again, and the smile box shall never be shut, said the woodling joyfully. He turned to go down. What a surprise awaited him! Instead of rocks and stones, soft green grass and lovely flowers covered the hill and plain, and as he took the first step, he felt that all his weariness and soreness had left him, and his feet were cured. Down he stepped, and The way had suddenly become so short that in a moment he had reached the signpost and the road leading to the garden. Over the trees he flew, and it was a happy little woodling who alighted beside the waiting fairies in the garden, where it was always, turning page, noise, where it was always spring. "Why, he is smiling all over," said the fairykins. That's the baby fairies, remember? "And not a thorn is left up. He is cured," exclaimed the woodling mother thankfully. "Yes, and I have brought back the oil of good cheer," said the woodling. "See, though I have used so much, the bottle is still full." "It is magic oil," said the gentlest one. "The more you use, the more you have." "The woodlings cannot call you the Thorny One now," Pearlykin remarked. "Smile of Gold would be a better name." There you go, and that's the end of that chapter. The next chapter is called Phil, as in the person's name, Phil, and I'll have that one in a minute, but I'm just going to have a wee snack and drink, and it's time for you, if you haven't already got yours, to quickly go off and get them. And I can chat in between while I'm drying off my desk from where the rest of the water dribbled down the side of my thing when I was filling it up. One of the things I'm hoping to do is figure out how to, it's meant to be quite easy, but I've got so many new things going on, it takes a while for my head to sort itself. I want to figure out how to how to decide when to show an ad, because I'm an affiliate now. Twitch wants to show people ads. So if I choose to show ads, I can decide when they are shown, and then while I'm having an ad break, while there's an ad break happening, and you guys will know it's going to be happening, I can go off to the loo, and you can go and get your drinks or go to the loo as well, or whatever else you need to do, and then come back and we can all be ready to go on again. But I haven't yet figured out quite how to do that to make sure I know when I'm meant to be doing it. And there's a few aspects I need to understand before I can get that sorted. But that's one of the things I'm planning on doing. Hopefully I'll be able to get that and my subscriber emote sorted sometime soon. So if you are already following, wonderful, thank you, I appreciate that. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but I have 5 follower emotes. So if you are a follower, if you are following my channel, those emotes are there for you to be able to use. They only work on my channel. That's just the way it is, unless you've got, no, that's Discord. I was going to tell you something which would mean that you could use them elsewhere, but you can't, because that's a Discord feature, not a Twitch feature. If you are a subscriber, you can use the 1 subscriber emote that I currently, I do this a lot, don't I, Jonathan? Which is why I decided to turn it into an emote. I make points about things all the time. Also, it's a great one for saying, yeah, I agree with what's already been said further up in the chat, which is what I initially was thinking of when I first made it, and then I realised how much I actually do that, which is quite funny. I laugh at myself often. It's better to laugh than to get upset about things. And also it makes life a lot more fun when you laugh. So, yeah, once I've got some more subscriber emotes, anyone who's a subscriber here and on somebody else's channel can use the subscriber emotes between the channels that they are subscribed to. But at the moment, I've only got 1. I'm really, really sorry about that. So hopefully I'll be able to figure out how to do some more ones that I like. I started with the 1 and then wanted to be able to edit it, but couldn't figure out quite the way to get it doing what I wanted it to do, because I'm not a graphic artist, not a digital artist. I can do things with photos, kind of. So we'll get there. I need to figure out some things I actually want to make emotes for. That probably would help. There are 2 simple ways of doing that. One is things that people commonly use emotes for. Hi, wow, all that sort of stuff. And then the other is if there are particular things that a streamer commonly does, which they would be referencing, which, yeah, like me. Anyway, doesn't matter. But yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. It's just one of those little things along the way. And wonderfully, I've remembered to turn the volume off on my phone and my headphones. And I got my delight for today. This morning was I received a parcel that I had ordered, and in it is, I'm just seeing if I can get this to show you. I showed you my book stand when I got that, which I still love. It's brilliant, especially, I mean, I use it for my propping my iPad up on, my little iPad mini, first gen iPad mini, hand-me-down thing, which is where I read my digital books from, but it's actually designed for real physical books, and that's what I've got my book on at the moment. So this is today's. It is a headphones. Yes, it's the same colour as me. Everything I wear is black, apparently. It's a headphone stand. So I put my headphones on here, like this. They hang on it. Trying to get it far enough away from the computer that you can, the camera that you can see it. And it's also got that shelf on the front, which is where I can stand my phone and still have it charging, which means it's not going to drop on the floor off the side of my desk, and I can see what's going on my phone, because it's a way that I am able to keep an eye on some things, because I don't always see them and when they're happening in chat, when they're on the other screen. It's just the way an ADHD brain works. Sometimes you have to have a different way of looking at it. Like I wrote out a little wee note for myself. Here, I'll show you. I wrote a little note. This little note is stuck on the side of my monitor. And this note is stuck on the side of my monitor because it has my short version of my chat commands. There are a couple of chat commands I haven't got on there because I actually know those ones now. Now I do. Ban and block. I know those ones, which is great. But it's also got chat commands for hi, which I totally forgot to put on there. And that's why that note's there. It's because I meant to remember to put it in. So I can do this. And it gives you a little bit about what I do. And I can also do this. Hang on, I need to copy some information first. That one there. And I can give you a shout out to Jonathan. And Jonathan reads and plays games online. And the reading he's doing, most of the reading that he's doing, or all of the reading maybe, is old historic documents such as letters and court papers and things like this from the Elizabethan the Tudor period. It's much bigger than just Elizabethan. Around the time when Queen Elizabeth I was reigning, but also some of the others, it's associated with that because it was a lot of the different political and otherwise shenanigans that were going on at the time. And Jonathan is researching these things to put them together in a game that is based on historic fact. How about that? Did you like that terminology? Political and other shenanigans going on. Tudor shenanigans. You're most welcome. It's great to be able to shout out somebody that I know. And so I have a few things like that. And here's another one. This is my reading break. You remember, that's why I'm doing this. Here's another one. There's my YouTube channel. And if you're over on YouTube wondering what all these things are that I'm typing about and talking about, but you can't see anything, that's because you're missing out on the live chat. And if you would like to be part of it, try to see if you can actually come and be part of it when I'm streaming on Twitch. Because I don't stream live on YouTube, only on Twitch. I put my recordings over on YouTube. But if you can manage YouTube but you can't manage Twitch, that's okay. We don't mind. But say hi in the comments down below if you're on YouTube. That's great too. I love getting comments there. There's a few people that I've got to know a little bit more that I've got to know elsewhere on YouTube, that now we will often have just a wee quiet chat in my YouTube comments, which is lovely. I also have a Discord server. Ah, that one worked too. That's the short version, which I keep on forgetting I've actually got, and I keep typing the whole word out. So my Discord server is probably one of the quietest Discord servers on Discord ever. I sometimes remember to put up the illustrations for the book that we are currently reading. Sometimes I'll put them up afterwards if I remember. And then there's a whole lot of books I've totally forgotten to do them for, where the books actually have illustrations, but I haven't remembered to put them up. But occasionally we will actually chat about different things on the Discord server. There's a general chat section, but there's also a section for if you're on Discord and you have joined my Discord server, it will show you a notification in my server when I go live, which means it'll give you a little red number on my server name. It's one way of being able to just sort of see what's going on and all that sort of stuff. Or for others to see what's going on when I've gone live. But also, I mean, there's a section where you can suggest books that you think might be great for reading, or books that were favourites for you, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's just not really very busy, sorry. We'll get there. Things like that. It's very handy. Yep, no worries, Jonathan, go for it. Whatever you need to go and do. And you already know about the jigsaw command. That's exclamation mark. That's the z thing, exclamation mark. And then the word jigsaw, Jigsaw. No spaces, no capitals, just the word jigsaw after an exclamation mark. And it will give you the invite link for the current jigsaw puzzle that you can see up here, which is another thing that YouTube viewers get to miss out on, because I actually trim my videos down to just the camera section, because once we've finished being live, you can't actually participate in the chat or do the jigsaws. So I don't see any reason to leave all those extra bits there before I put them up, because it's just taking up space that isn't really so relevant. What else? I'm part of Codex. There's an image, a logo over there that says Codex, and it's got a picture of a book with pages turning and a mouse, and it's in my colours because I put my colours on it and my screen name. And Codex is a group of public domain book readers, and if you join the Codex Discord server, and I'm going to give you yet another link, then you can find out more about all the other Codex readers and also chat with them and chat with other people who like the sort of stories that we all read. On my Twitch channel, Twitch page, on my About page on Twitch, down below where the video window is at the top, or the main banner is at the top, there's a section that says Codex, like it's written over there, and it's got a list of all the different Codex readers on Twitch, all the different members of Codex on Twitch, and you can follow those links to their Twitch channels, which is a great way to get to know them too. Watch the videos that they've already left, that they've got up on Twitch if they're not live, otherwise you may actually happen to catch them live, and then you can follow them and know when they're reading and all that sort of stuff. The others, sometimes they'll read children's books. Most of them will read books that aren't specifically written for children, but most of them play games and do other things like just chatting and stuff like that, as well as reading, whereas I just do reading. My focus here, I chat when I'm going to be reading, but I don't just come online and chat. I actually have a book in mind that I'm going to be reading to you, or I am in between reading, which is why my category is reading fun. I remembered it. It took me a while, sorry. And yeah, because there's a lot of words that I'm giving you all my commands now, aren't I? Because there's a lot of words that I learnt because I was reading books. I didn't learn them in the classroom. They weren't relevant in the classroom for me to learn them. I say some things the way I figured out how to say them, possibly the way that I first learnt to say them. Sometimes I will correct that as I get older, when I'm coming across the word again. A bit like when I was a kid, I thought the name Penelope was Penelope because the way my brain put the letters together. Penelope, where it's not, it's Penelope. Anyway, but the way it does that, my brain does that, that sometimes I will say a word completely differently to how you have heard it. And I may say it differently again a bit later on in the same book or the same page. Doesn't matter. We'll have fun. We can laugh at it. And you're most welcome to actually, if you're on Twitch, you're most welcome to create clips as well. I'm fine with that. All of that sort of stuff. Have you had a good break? Oh, I didn't have a bite of my biscuit. So, Aunt, I don't know if you picked it up before. Sorry, I'm speaking specifically to someone now. But I did a slightly less number of puzzle pieces this time. And when you've finished, if you want me to do another puzzle, let me know if you want more or less pieces to the picture. You don't have to tell me now. It's all right. And there's another command which I haven't put up there, but you can use, and that's lurk, which is where you do an exclamation mark in the word lurk, L-U-R-K, no capitals, no spaces. And that will just acknowledge that you are there, but you're not going to be actively involved with chat, and you don't mind me saying that you are there, like mentioning your name or making reference to you being here. Basically, this reading aloud is great for listening to when you're doing other things like housework, sewing projects, some sorts of actual at work, paid work type stuff where you're actually working with your hands, organising things, whatever. And so I don't have a problem with anyone specifically lurking. Yes, Jonathan knows about lurk. Brilliant. That's great. Some people are able to do administrative work while they're listening to things. I find it depends on the type of work I'm doing. So I'm quite happy for people to lurk. This is not a classroom. I am not going to be administering tests or exams afterwards. I want you to be able to enjoy what we're reading. Yes, you will probably learn a few things along the way. If we come across stuff that you haven't known what it is before, new words, whatever, a lot of life experience on my part, which often gets shared, but also strange words and plants at the moment, because the book we're doing is about a garden. Sometimes we look at pictures of plants. Anyway, I'm going to carry on reading. So the next chapter is called Phil. We are reading The Dream Girl's Garden by Edith, a New Zealand author. It was published in the 1920s. It is a public domain book, but you will not find it on Project Gutenberg, which I will give you the link. I will give you the link for Project Gutenberg, but I don't think you'll find the book there, just because it hasn't been digitized in New Zealand yet. And there's not a lot of other countries that have the book. But that's where I often get the digital forms of a lot of the books I read if I'm reading them from my iPad. Because they are already in the public domain, and so they get hosted on Project Gutenberg. So I'll carry on with the chapter. We got the name of it. Why not read the rest? Dream Girl's Garden by Edith Howes. This chapter is called Phil. In nearly every large family there is a restless one, the odd one of the family, who doesn't settle down among the others and do whatever they are doing and play contentedly at their games. And in the Dream Girl's garden there was a restless one too. His name was Phil. And he might well have been called Phil the Wanderer. I'm afraid he was restless because he felt rather superior. The garden fairies seemed to him such ordinary fairies. Far across the land there was no doubt far handsomer and cleverer fairies than these, fairies with whom he could talk freely and feel at home. Yes, he does seem to think he's rather superior. For he himself, I've got biscuit bothering me. For he himself was not an ordinary fairy. He himself was handsomer and cleverer than anyone in the garden. I'm thinking that's his opinion, not necessarily everyone else's. Yes, indeed, he was very superior, and it was stupid of the others not to see this. They treated him as if he were exactly like themselves, but he was not like them. He was far more wonderful. Well, he would show them. Some day he would show them what was in him. That was the way he talked to himself. So it was not to be wondered that one day he flew out of the garden and did not return. Far across the land he flew, over hill and valley, over the homes of the woodlings and the white gnomes and the golden dwarves, past the garden of the gentlest one. These are all characters that we have actually been introduced to already in the story. Until he came to a land he had never seen before. Here he alighted. There was a beautiful garden full of delicious fruits, and fairies flew splendidly about in it. His dreams had come true. Here were fairies handsomer and larger than the fairies of the Dream Girl's garden. No doubt they were cleverer too. Oh, they looked very superior indeed. Yes, this was the place for him. Here he could feel at home. He stopped a busy-looking fellow who was passing without noticing him. The other fellow wasn't noticing Phil. I should like to stay here, he said. I am sure this will suit me. The other gave him a half-surprised, half-careless look. Oh, very well, he said, and he flew on. He seems too busy to attend me, thought Phil. I will speak to somebody else. I think this is one of those you're going to learn a lesson here chapters. Sorry, oh, itchy eye. And I think my fire needs stoking. What do you say? Shall I go downstairs and make sure that the fire keeps going so the house stays warm? We could have that as a winter interactive thing in the chat. Oh, I don't know if anyone's noticed. I've actually changed the icon for the, it's not very clear, is it? I did change the icon for the channel points. They're now called pages, and it looks like a book with its page turning. But because they're so small, you can't see it very well. Doesn't matter. Oops, that one's not quite where I need it. I'll just move this a little so I can see what I need to see. No, I don't want you covering the whole page. You know, when you move something up the page on the up the screen on the computer and it hits the top edge and suddenly it fills up everything. It's like, no, when it very first happened to me, because I was on old computers for a long time. First time it happened to me when I was on the newer versions, like Windows 10, which I'm on now, Windows 8 it was. I was like, oh, and I let go of it with the mouse. I let go of the mouse button, and so of course it stayed big. What I didn't realise is if I kept hold of it and moved it away from the top edge, it wouldn't do that. Anyway, just random things. I learn by practical hands-on as much as possible, and sometimes it can be a little bit, oh, what happened? We'll carry on. I think he's going to learn things from what's going on around him too. We'll find out. He seems too busy to attend to me, thought Phil. I will speak to somebody else. He flew to a lovely fairy with gold and purple wings. It's here. I know it's here. I had it a moment ago. I don't know how many times have I read those words. At least twice. He flew to a lovely... In my head, I've read it at least twice. The previous sentence I'd read twice, definitely. He flew to a lovely fairy with gold and purple wings and hair that shone like a beech in autumn, which is sort of like a reddy brown, deep reddy brown colour. Sorry. I should like to stay here, he said. I have come from a far land to find this garden. Have you? She asked. She turned to him, and her face was as clear-cut and beautiful as a statue cut in alabaster. Of course you may stay if you like. Roam about and see all you wish, but be careful not to interfere with anything. We are doing great things here. And she too flew off. Phil was indignant. Interfere with anything? Indeed! As if I were a baby, he said to himself. Anyone might see I have more sense than that They don't give one a very warm welcome here. Sorry, tickle in the throat. They certainly did not give him a warm welcome. He roamed about, but nobody took any notice of him unless he spoke first and attracted their attention. He might have been a bee or a butterfly for all the importance he held in their eyes. It was a great shock to Phil. He began to feel just a little less superior. The truth was he had alighted in the just grown-up garden. Here lived the fairies who had just grown up, and each was eager to do some great thing for humans. One wished to make apple trees grow baskets on their lower branches that the apples might drop into them when ripe, and so be easily carried away. Another hoped to make plums ripen in a day, and yet another was trying to make every kind of fruit grow on one tree. I really have to do something about this. Somewhere, I can't see them. Somewhere I have some throat lozenges. Oh well. I think if I just keep sipping the water, I'll be okay. To make every kind of fruit grow on one tree. There were 100 plans, and the fairies were working so busily at them, and were so full of thoughts about them, that they really couldn't be expected to take much notice of a child fairy, because he's come from a younger garden. So long as he didn't interfere with things, he could go where he liked, but he mustn't take up their time and attention. Of course, Phil didn't understand that. He wandered about and watched them at their work and felt ill-used. If they only knew how clever he was, they would talk to him and be friendly and perhaps even let him work at one of their plans. He would make them talk to him. He crept close to a fairy who sat perfectly still, with his eyes fixed on a huge cherry tree. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. Ooh. Peg or two? Down? The fairy made no reply, but sat as still as ever, his eyes as intent on the tree as before. "What are you thinking about?" Phil asked more loudly. The fairy looked round at him impatiently. "I am thinking out a plan for making trees grow into houses so that people should not have to have the trouble of building them," he replied, speaking very quickly. "Now please go away, you disturb me." "Can you really do it?" Phil persevered, but the fairy would not speak again. Phil moved slowly off, very disappointed. A fairy was pounding seeds in a silver bowl. "What are you making? May I help you?" asked Phil. That's the first time he's actually offered anything. "May I help you?" asked Phil. She looked up, her eyes glowing. "I am making a seed that will grow into the sweetest flower in the world," she answered. "It will have the scent of all the blossoms whose seed I am pounding here: violets, carnation, rose, wallflower, and mignonette. It will be a marvellous flower, and all the humans will love it." Mignonette's another one that we came across that I haven't yet looked up. "May I help you make it?" Phil asked again. "Help? No, indeed. What could you do? Besides, it is my work, my very own idea." "May I stay and talk, then?" No, I'm far too busy to talk. I must think about what I am doing." Again, Phil had to move away, for she bent over her bowl and gave her whole attention to it. He wandered about a little longer, and at last he came upon the beautiful fairy with hair that shone like a beech in autumn. She held a great strawberry in her hands, and she was murmuring a magic spell above it. "Oh, yay, the puzzle's done! Well done, well done!" "Oh, that's gorgeous. I love that one." Giusti Garden in Verona, Italy. Sorry. You can look it up if you're on YouTube and you don't know what I'm talking about. Giusti Garden in Verona, Italy. There you go. And would you like another jigsaw puzzle? I will find one. I've got a link list here if anyone does want another jigsaw puzzle. No. I hit the wrong thing. And how about number of pieces in the puzzle? do we have a preferred number of pieces? I can give you the default, which is what we had the last time, was about 100 pieces or 104 pieces. The one I just gave you just a moment ago was about 77 pieces, I think. Preferences? Okay, I'm going to leave it at 104. I've got the colour. Now I'm going to get the link. Copy link. Close the ad. Give you the link and then put it into my chat handler. Chatbot thing, so that if anyone wants to use the jigsaw link, they can. There you go. Right, back to this. And Q's here too, yay! Oh, sorry. I hope you don't mind. I just realised I called someone out. I shouldn't do that. Anyway, please ignore. I'm going to carry on reading. Thank you. That's relief. It's just I was thinking of the jigsaw puzzle and the fact that the two of you do the jigsaw puzzle, and it's wonderful seeing all the pieces moving and all this sort of stuff. And so I thought, oh yay, you can do the puzzle too. Without thinking about what I was saying out loud. Anyway, carrying on with the story. The story about this fairy called Phil, who thinks that he's wonderful and a little superior to everybody in his own garden. And he's now learning a lesson, I think. Let's see how strongly he learns this lesson. Right, here we go. No, that's not a problem about not being able to respond. I'll carry on with reading. It was the fairy with the hair that shone like a beech in autumn. Beech trees, that sort of beech. B-E-E-C-H, not a sandy beach by the sea, which would be blonde. Beech trees in autumn have this, I think it's a beautiful dark reddy brown coloured leaf. Unless it was a particular variety that we saw a lot when we were living in England. Anyway, finding the sentence, I found it 3 times already. He wandered about a little longer, and at last he came upon the beautiful fairy with hair that shone like a beech in autumn. She held a great strawberry in her hands, and she was murmuring a magic spell above it, over and over and over again. And I'm pretty sure that's where we got to before. I can guess what you're doing, said Phil. You are going to make strawberries grow their own cream. Because it's a very English thing to have strawberries and cream. We don't do that really in New Zealand. Now you have spoilt my spell, she cried. Oh dear, I shall have to begin all over again. You and your silly remarks. I'm not going to make strawberries grow their own cream. I'm going to make strawberries grow as big as pineapples. That makes a lot more sense to me. And to do that, the magic spell must be uttered 1,000 times without interruption. Now I must start again at the beginning. I told you when you first came not to interfere with anything. You are a stupid, tiresome child, and you must go away at once. You are annoying everyone. Don't come here again till you have more sense. A stupid, tiresome child. Phil no longer felt superior. He felt little and lonely and ready to cry. And he could not remember how wonderful he had thought himself. This, after all, was not the place for him. Why had he left the dream girl's garden, where there was laughter and friendliness and merry companions and time to talk together? He would go back. So back he went, far across the land, over hill and valley, till he came to the dear garden again. Spring had come to the garden. The walks were sweet with violets. That's a flower I need to plant. I used to have some and I miss it. We had some building work done, and so the dirt got all moved. So I need to go and get some more violet roots to plant again. They're lovely. They hide. If you've got the more traditional violets, the flowers, you can often smell them flowering, but you can't see them because the flowers are half hidden underneath the leaves. That's why traditionally you'll often hear about shy violets. It's because the flowers themselves often show below the upper levels of the leaves, probably because they like shade as a plant. So the walks were sweet with violets, and the primrose bank was starred with golden clusters. Fruit trees stood white with blossom, and birds sang, "Spring, spring, spring." That's what the birds were singing all day long. And there sat Goldie Top, friendliest of little fairies, among the snowy blossoms. She had put on a long frock, hung with pearls along its lower edge, and she had caught up her hair with pins of pearl, and it shone like a beech in autumn. And now she sat demurely on a flowered bough and pretended to be quite grown up. Phil crept close behind her and kissed her on her dainty cheek. I'm just going to find you the photograph. It's been renamed, so I need to find it again. There you go. There she is in her long frock, and she's got her hair pinned up, and these are her wings here, these ones with the blue on them. These are his here with the little pink, like a starburst in the corners. Phil crept close behind and kissed her on her dainty cheek, and she turned swiftly round and laughed at him. "Oh, Phil, where have you been?" she cried. "I have been looking everywhere for you. Come and play grown-up fairies." "I will play anything you like, but not that," Phil replied. "Please don't be grown up. Be a child with me and let us play our happy games together. I shall never again wish to leave our garden and our playmates." There you go. That's the end of that chapter. I'm just going to see if I'm going to read one more because of how long they are. Yep, this book is one of those ones where the book lengths, the chapter lengths. I'll try that again, less impolitely. The chapter lengths are much more varied. How long the chapters are changes a lot. Yeah, there you go. Yes, it is a very pretty picture, that one. Right, we shall read the next chapter after I've had a mouthful of water. Okay, here we go. The Fairy Poet. If you must write, and if there is no, if you must write, you must write, and if there is no help for it. I would try that again. That was so clunky. Sometimes words just do that. Yes, it would make a beautiful poster. It really would. I might see if I will try and get these illustrations up on our Discord server. And if you haven't actually already joined the Discord server, you're most welcome to. Most of my commands are ones that you guys can actually put up as well. There are one or two that I have to do, or a mod has to do, but most of them, the ones that I've shown you already today, are ones that you guys can put up, including the jigsaw one, obviously, in case somebody turns up and you think they might want to do jigsaw puzzles. So if you aren't already part of our Discord server, you're most welcome to join it. You will have to agree to the terms of use, which, yes, there are general Discord rules about appropriate behaviours, which I do not have them spelled out, but there are copies of them elsewhere on Discord, which they're just reasonable behaviour ones, really. But my ones basically are just about keeping it a good, friendly, safe place for families, children, and people who don't cope well with bad language. I'm okay if you want to use bad language elsewhere. I don't mind what language you use, but preferably in my Discord server and on my Twitch channel, we don't use it, just because we don't want to scare away the people who think that the internet's a really big, scary, horrible, nasty place. We want to show them that it's not all like that there are actually some nice places, and I'm part of the progression. They will actually get to the stage of actually realizing that, yeah, some things aren't quite so bad after all, hopefully. So, yeah, if you join the Discord server and I haven't put the pictures up by the time I start reading the next book, then please remind me to put these pictures up. They're lovely, and I'll try and make sure that these are ones I've had to scan to be able to get them available. I'll try to make sure that they're reasonable, as good as I can get them. They're not fabulous in the book itself. I'll show you if I find it. Yes, this is one that falls out. So it's rather faded. So I've done reasonably okay with getting it to show up. I think the quality's a little bit better on my computer than what you're seeing in the stream, but we'll get there. So yeah, remind me on Discord sometime and I'll post the pictures. The fairy poet. If you must write, and there is no help for it. Yeah, got that. Every poet in the world has found that out. Even if you happen to be born a fairy, it is the same, as little Amethyst discovered. No matter how hard she tried to do other things all the time, to spend each minute of the day playing or working with the other fairies in the Dream Girl's garden, still the thoughts and rhymes would come into her head, and she simply had to go away by herself and write them down. She hid them from the other fairies because nobody else seemed to write things. And she felt odd and shy about it. Fairies would be sure to laugh at her if they knew, and she could not bear that. She loved her little, turning pages. She loved her little verses, even though she felt that perhaps she ought to be ashamed of them. They were her secret treasures, and she would croon them over to herself when nobody was by. She wrote them on silver birch bark, with a bird's quill dipped in ink of violets, and she kept all the little sheets of bark in a secret cupboard in her room. When nobody was near, she would lift them out and read them over, or sing them softly to the little tunes of her own, because she loved the rhythm. That is how Nim, oh dear, Nim, oh no, Nim's nasty. I don't like Nim. I'm really hoping that by the end of this book, we will have dealt with Nim, or Nim will have learnt his lesson somehow and actually changed for the better. I really don't like him. Anyway, sorry. Part of that's my memories of him, and part of it is just sort of seeing some of his behaviours since we're reading the book again. We shall carry on. That is how Nim found them out. He was always prying about in search of mischief, and loitering near one day he heard the little fairy crooning them over, repeating them in a nice little voice. Yeah. He peeped through the window and saw her sitting on the floor with her precious tablets on her lap. She would lift one and read it happily, or sing it, or perhaps frown over it and alter a word here and there. Then she would take up another and go through the same performance. Presently she took a fresh sheet and began to write, her dark blue eyes glowing with excitement and her soft cheeks rosy. Nim watched and listened, taking special notice of the secret cupboard. I'm trying to find it. The secret cupboard in which she at last replaced them. Nim watched and listened, taking especial notice of the secret cupboard in which she at last replaced them. Next day, as soon as he saw her safely away with the fairies at the pond, he crept away to her room and stole the birch bark tablets from their hiding place. He read them and roared with laughter, then rushed chuckling into the midst of the fairies. "What do you think I have here?" he cried. Poems by Miss Fairy Amethyst, if you please." Amethyst was up in a moment from her seat, her face crimson, and her hands outstretched for her treasures. "Give them to me, oh, give them to me," she begged. "You have no right. How did you get them? Oh, please give them to me." Nim held them with outstretched hand over the pond. Held them out like this, like I'm going to drop them in the pond if you keep doing that. Hands off or I shall drop them in the water, he laughed. Then the ink will run and there will be no more poetry. A pity to lose such marvellous verses. Nym, don't tease. If those are amethysts, why don't you give them to her? Cried the other fairies. All in good time, he replied in the same mocking tone. She shall have them one by one, and you shall hear them first. He rose into the air above the pond, tucked the tablets under his arm, drew out one and began to read. Where pansies grow in a purple row, I found a dear little house. It was brown and shiny and coiled and tiny, too small for even a mouse. The door was round and it faced the ground, just the place to hide. I said, it will fit me tightly, but I'll sleep there nightly. 2 horns came out and a head. This house so fine, it said, is mine. I need it by night and by day. It's mine by making, not yours for taking. And that dear little house crawled away. Ha, 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 ha. Did you ever hear anything so silly? Shouted Nym. Poetry. And here is another. Where larkspurs sway and roses blow and poppies hang their heads at night and lilies stand like drifted snow, there is my garden of delight. Where little winds blow scent about, and hollyhocks stand tall and bright, and butterflies flit in and out, there is my garden of delight. Where shadows lie across the lawns and trees shut out the town from sight, and songbirds greet the great dewy dawns, there is my garden of delight. O fairies, play your merry games, and ever homeward wing your flight, for happy we spend our days here in my garden of delight, said Nym. Nym laughed more than ever at that one, but the other fairies were not laughing. They had looked first puzzled, then interested, then pleased as he read. Now Goldie Top said, Why, that's our garden. And Pearlican cried out, These are pretty poems. Go on, Nym. I don't think that's the response he was expecting. Amethyst had covered her flushed face with her hands when Nym began to read, and her tears trickled between her fingers. But Bluebell and Dreamaway had put their arms around her, one on each side, and it was Swift who picked up each sheet as Nym sent it fluttering down after being read. Now, when Pearlican said, These are pretty poems, Amethyst's tears began to stop. Nym was disappointed. Nobody was laughing but himself. What do you think of this, then? He asked. Away and away and away and away, where the wind goes, there go I. They need to toss him in the lake. Where the wind goes, there go I. I follow his track to the edge of the day, and fly, and high with the clouds I fly. The stars are still dreaming of silvery night, where the moon dips pale is the sky. But on goes the wind to the palace of light, and on with the clouds go I. Away and away and away and away, where the sun lives, gold is the floor. He comes forth to shine in the land of the day, and I slip in at the door. There, as if anybody could go in at the sun's door, jeered Nym. No, but that's just the thing we have often wanted to do, cried Flute. I've often had that feeling, but I can't put it into such pretty words as those. Amethyst looked up gratefully. You put it in your songs, she said. Yes, I know that feeling, said Honeybell. You gaze and gaze at the sun coming out of his palace, and you long to peep in to see how lovely it is inside. But Amethyst is the only one who has told it beautifully. Amethyst is a poet, said Robin quietly. Nym broke scornfully into their talk. Rubbish, she said. You don't know what you're talking about. Poet indeed. Anybody could write this stuff. Here's one called The Gentlest One's Night Song. Now just listen to it and tell me if you can that you call it poetry. Babykins, try that again. Babykins, fairykins, rock you in sleep, here where the daffodils blow. Swing you in cradles so silky and deep, swing you, oh, softly and slow. Swing you in sleep, swing slow, swing slow. Tender ones, darling ones, float in your dreams, far where the smile bubbles play. Float you and follow their shimmering gleams, home again come with the day. Float you in dreams, come home, come home. "Splendid," said Flute. "I will make music for that, and we will give it to the gentlest one for her birthday. Shall we, Amethyst?" Amethyst smiled and blushed with pleasure. Her tears were quite gone now. "I should love to do that," she said. Robin and Swift and Prickletop were whispering together. Suddenly the three of them sprang at Nim. Swift seized the tablets from under his arm, and at the same moment the other two fell on him from above and bore him down through the air into the pond. There they ducked him and ducked him till he spluttered for breath, while all the rest looked on with enjoyment. "Serves him right," said everybody. But at last tender-hearted little Amethyst called out, "Not too much, let him off now." So they drew him dripping from the pond and held him on its edge. "Yay, yes, we did it!" "You sneaked into Amethyst's room and stole her poems," said Robin. "Say you're sorry." At first Nim wouldn't say it, but they ducked him again till he did. Everybody owed him a grudge for his ill-natured tricks, so they really liked ducking him. "Now," said Swift, "we can't expect you to see beauty in Amethyst's poetry because you have a horrible heart that can only enjoy ugliness. But we see the beauty, and we know that we have a fairy poet in our happy garden." He placed the tablets in her hands. "Perhaps you will read them to us yourself," he went on. "It would give us great pleasure." Prickletop, still holding fast to the scowling, shaking Nim, spoke in his turn. "In my travels—" All the fairies smiled, and he smiled too, but he repeated it. "In my travels I have seen human poets despised and heartbroken, for men too often jeer, as Nim jeered here today. But we are fairies, who should love everything that has beauty. Then let us honour Amethyst and treat her as the greatest among us, for with words a poet may make undying beauty." Now the reference to Prickletop's travels was one of our early stories, which was about how he saw them because of the honey from flowers that came from far-off places. And so he would see these places and things happening there, like in a dream. It's like the flowers were remembering, and it went into their honey, the honey that was made from their pollen or their nectar. Nectar, that's what it is. Anyway, so that's why everyone knew, because they had wondered where he had travelled when he'd only been away for a few hours at a time. And so it's one of our earlier ones. And if you haven't heard it, then look on the playlist, either on Twitch. It may still be on Twitch, otherwise over on YouTube in about a week and a half or 2 weeks' time from when I actually read it. It will be over there, so you can have a listen to it. And I can't remember which of those ones it is, so you'll have to listen to the whole book. Right. Let us honour Amethyst and treat her as the greatest among us, for with words a poet may make undying beauty. "Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah," shouted everybody. "Well said, Prickletop. Hurrah for Amethyst. She shall be queen," cried Perlican. "We'll make a throne for her and crown her with a wreath of flowers, and she shall sit high above us and read her lovely poems to us." In a moment they were busy. They made a throne and seated the blushing, laughing Amethyst upon it, and they crowned her fair head with flowers. And there, happy and charming, she read her verses in her clear, sweet voice, while the fairies sat below her on the grass, and Nim crept away to find dry clothes. There you go. Finally we got Nim! Yes! Sorry, I don't mean to be nasty in any way, but he was just so nasty to everybody. Horrible. He thought things were funny, and they were quite hurtful. So yeah, there's a certain level of inappropriate delight when he gets his comeuppance. So that's the end of that chapter and today's reading. I see that the puzzle is still happening, so if you wish to carry on with that, that's cool. Yes, he definitely had it coming. She wrote the character well for making him unlikable. little bit nasty. I wouldn't be surprised if she has seen children behaving in that sort of a manner when she was teaching at school. Yay. My chewing sound didn't go through the microphone so much that time. Yes. I have noticed with a lot of authors, the ones that often really appeal to us, if we're not just ploughing through hundreds and hundreds of books, but just plodding along, but thoroughly enjoying some of them. Often the books that we really take to, the ones that really sit well with us and we keep coming back to in our hearts or our minds, even if we don't necessarily read them again, are often because the authors themselves have actually, even though they're writing fiction, I'm obviously talking about fiction here, even though they're writing fiction, they have taken a lot of things that are true to life, whether it's characterizations of people or observances of the way the world happens, stuff happens within the world, or how things interact, all that sort of stuff. Often it's the little things that we have seen or experienced that connect with us, and so therefore it makes the story seem more believable, more real, even though we know it's an imaginary story. And so therefore, because of this realism that it's brought, not a harsh realism, but a sense of it's the real world that I have experienced. Because of that, we tend to hold those as being a lot more precious to us. It's not that they are copying the real world that they see around us. It's more that they see elements of certain things, and with characterizations, with characters. When they're writing a character, it's because the way they do the personality of that character is there's aspects of it that ring true to what we have experienced in the way that people are. And most people at some stage have experienced a little bit of bullying and things like that. And so therefore, when you have a writer writes, doesn't over focus on it, but writes about a character that is a rather bullying character, we identify with the responses to that bullying character. Hopefully we're not the bullies, that sort of thing. And thank you for following Maple Leaves in the Trees. It's wonderful to have you here, and I hope you enjoy ongoing being able to be part of the community here. It's a very quiet bunch of people we've got. We have a little quiet bit of chatting going on, which is great. I love that. But also on top of that, we have a Discord server. Does anyone want to put the link up for the Discord server? Does anyone remember how to do that, or is that one that I have to do? I think that might be one that I have to do, actually. I'm just going to paste something there. Yay, it worked! Brilliant, thanks, Aunt. That's great. Yes, so our Discord server is really, really quiet. I don't know if you've been here the whole time I've been reading, but that's okay. You don't have to have been here the whole time. You can watch the VOD if you want, if you do want to catch up on what I've already read. But our Discord server is very quiet, but I do try to get the illustrations up for the various books that we've been reading. Yay, the puzzle's finished. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. And we celebrate things like getting the puzzles finished too, which is good. I just, with this book, I've talked with another friend who also streams, and they were saying that it would be one thing that probably the people who enjoy my reading or enjoy the books I read would actually enjoy having something to do, like a jigsaw puzzle or something at the same time. And so far it's been working. It took me a previous whole book worth of reading time to actually figure out how to get it to work on my stream. They had explained, but there was one tiny little aspect that I hadn't quite, and it's finally clicked, and now we've figured out what we're doing. So yeah, if you wish to join our Discord server, there will be some guidelines you'll need to agree to. It's not a problem. They're not onerous. It's about basically just making sure that our community stays a nice, pleasant place to be for everybody. And you can make suggestions about future books to read. I have not yet picked what I'm reading next. It will need to be a public domain book because that's what I read, a children's book because that's what I read. You can have a look at Project Gutenberg to see if there's a particular book that you think might be quite a good one to read and you're not sure. If there's a book on Project Gutenberg, it's definitely public domain in the States. Don't know about New Zealand. I think our rules are the same, or if not, slightly easier. But it should be okay. And otherwise, pass on to me in the Discord server your suggestions. But you can talk about other things there to do with books and reading and old-fashioned stuff and all that sort of thing if you want. And if you haven't yet seen them, you can catch up on other books I've read previously over on YouTube. That's the link I just gave you. And there are a bunch of people who will be actually watching these over on YouTube. And if you wish to have that experience, like a different time of day for you, you can read, you can watch, I can read whenever you want because they're recordings. But I will have trimmed them down to just the video size. It won't have the overlay, it won't have the chat alongside or anything like that, but you can leave comments. Velveteen Rabbit. Ooh, I'm going to have a look and see. I was going to say something else about, oh, yes, I did read, public domain varies by country, but the Project Gutenberg ones, generally they need to be, the author needs to have been dead for 70 years, I think is the baseline that they use. But it also depends on the country of the author and possibly the country that it was published in. And maybe the country of the reader. It's really, technically it's quite complicated. So that's why by rule of thumb, I generally go by the author needs to have been dead for 70 years. Most of the countries I'm aware of are now with that level. Some of them it's 50 years. Some of them it's to do with when it was first published. Like the author can not, for certain books in certain countries, the author may have died a lot more recently than, so it's not 70 years, it's like 30 or 40 years, but the book was published so long ago, and so in that country that's already gone into public domain. But it depends on where you are, and there's not many that are like that. So, yeah, but if you can find out about it, I have read, very recently I read a book that was published 5 years ago. It's a New Zealand book, a lovely story about the observant, a modern retelling of the mythical formation of the Matariki star cluster. It's a children's book, it's a picture book, and I showed the pictures, but not up on the screen behind me. I just held the book up and showed them. The book is still within copyright, obviously, because it was only published 5 years ago. It's still copyright is held for it. But I got permission from the publishers to be able to share it with you, my listeners, because I thought you would enjoy something that is very specifically New Zealand published. So Matariki is the Maori observance of New Year. Yes, Dracula and Sherlock Holmes are. They would be wonderful, except that I don't do adult books, I do children's books. But yeah, Project Gutenberg is a great place to explore books that are available for reading that you don't have to borrow from the library, you don't have to go and purchase somewhere. So have a dig around there, and there are a lot of non-fiction books, but there are also a lot of fiction books. So the Seven Kites of Matariki was the name of the book that I read recently, and I don't know if it's still up on Twitch or if that's now expired, but I have it on YouTube, but you will not find it by searching for it, and it is not in my public playlists or anything like that. You need to join our Discord server to get the link for it. So if you want to have a watch of that one, it's unlisted. The publishers were happy for me to have it on YouTube as long as it was unlisted, because otherwise it's not fair for the people who wrote it and did the illustrations for it. Yeah, Winnie the Pooh. I'm trying to think if I actually read Winnie the Pooh. I think it was one that I was going to. I don't know. I have all the books that I've read are in play, apart from that one public domain, the one unlisted one, are on YouTube, and I have each book is done as a whole playlist. And so if you go to my YouTube channel and go to the playlists page of it and scroll through, you'll actually see the different books that I've read. I've read The Wind in the Willows, I've read The Secret Garden, and a whole bunch of other things like that. So, ooh, that sounds really, really interesting, Q. Winnie the Pooh was another good one. Interesting true story surrounding that. Yes, yes, absolutely. My local city was actually a big part of the behind the story, interestingly enough. So, you're in England? I've actually been to the forest that was the backdrop to the author writing the Winnie the Pooh books, and been to the bridge, which was the Pooh Sticks Bridge. It was quite an interesting little area. Anyway, so there's all sorts of stuff. Have a really good look around there. Oh, and yeah, there is definitely a connection there. And the bear, Pooh Bear, that was the connection, is to do with Canada. And you can go and look it all up and tell us all about it over on Discord too. Anyway, so I need to carry on with the rest of what's happening here, like stoking the fire and preparing dinner and things like this. It's been really, really, really lots of fun having everybody here today, and all the chatting going on, and me being able to read, and also me being able to not read because I get mixed up and lost on the page and stuff like that. And I look forward to seeing you again next time. Don't forget to go and check out the other Codex readers, which are linked to on my About page on Twitch. And that's probably down below where you are looking at the moment if you're watching this live. So look for the word Codex, C-O-D-E-X, and the links are there. Go and check out the other readers. See if any of them are actually live at the moment. Go and say hi, follow them, all of that sort of stuff. Really great having you guys all here, you folk all here, sorry, trying to use non-gendered terms when they don't need to be gendered. Love having the interactions, and I look forward to reading some more. And get over onto Discord and give me some suggestions about other books, but make sure that you've already seen what other ones I've already done, because I don't really need to read them a second time yet. We'll do them again some other time, a bit further into the future. Anyway, great to have you here. Look forward to seeing you next time. 3 days a week I read, remember, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m. New Zealand time. And if you're on Twitch, you will actually, on the schedule tab, it will show you what time it is in your time zone. See you next time, or whenever you can next drop in. And in the meantime, goodbye and happy reading.